So you know how to write great code. You know now you're officially a developer. Then you get on the job and you realize there's so much more. Today, we'll be discussing DevOps.
Everybody, welcome to another episode of Devs Like Us. I'm Clarence.
JB.
Terrence.
How's everybody doing today?
I'm doing good today. This week is a pretty good week, so
Good weeks are
it's
good.
almost over.
I'm happy. I heard we're talking about DevOps today.
Yeah, this is your
happy
realm.
place.
I'm expecting a lot from you today.
You shouldn't.
I feel like once the topic was chosen, Terrence turned into the mother off of Nutty Professor. Hercules.
I did feel that. I felt that as well. But you know, I am good. I am exhausted, but I'm pushing through. It's 4 for inches, and we're almost there. So yeah.
Keep with the football terms, huh?
Yeah, QB sneaking right in there. I'm ready to go. But today we have a pretty hot topic. It's a hot commodity. So I'll just go ahead and jump right into it. So DevOps. So what is DevOps? What's DevOps to you all?
I'm just messing. For me, DevOps is, the full life cycle for the software from, beginning to the end, which if it's, legacy software, there really is no foreseeable end. It just keeps getting better with time. And so looking from the, all right, what do we need? How are we going to implement it to once it's in production side, how's it doing? What changes do we need to make? What updates we need to make? And, feeding that back through to continue that cycle. Yeah.
See?
Yeah, so for me, it's definitely what JB said. And then just like overall, it's really just, it's a mindset. So as JB stated, it really never ends. And so it's really the mindset of always looking to get better, always looking of better ways to have metrics, always looking of really having like always being ready. And so when you hear, it pulls a lot of practices from site reliability engineers, and it also really is that relationship between development and operations and making sure that security is embedded in all of those phases as well. So it's really holistically, it's really truly just the mindset behind it all.
Okay. I like that. Yeah, I guess for me, I consider it kind of like the bread and butter of software engineering. It ties everything together, puts everything in motion and in place, and makes sure that all needed parties or needed participants, are readily available and, ready to kind of see something from start to finish, and as well as a continuation from that first deployment of that ready production ready product. So I guess so next question. So I know you mentioned metrics, Terrence. How big? What do you think the metrics? What role does the metrics play, and how important is it?
Right. So with the DevOps mentality, you always want to have some type of bar or to be able to baseline of where you started and where and how you're improving. So metrics plays a big part of that. So you want to, how many times are you able to deploy a day? How many times how much downtime has your system had since it's been up? So when in today's field, when you need to do a hot fix, or you need to have an automated push deployment, customers don't really want downtime. What's the downtime for the customer? Is there any downtime for the customer? Are you rolling that over, and so that the customers aren't feeling any downtime? So metrics play a big role in it, and really just making sure that you have that baseline, so okay, are we improving on on these things, and so you can just know where basically how far you've come from where you're starting at.
Okay. So I do have a follow-up then from that. So I know you mentioned something that was pretty interesting. And you think about like bigger projects or even compared to kind of like smaller projects, but like daily pushes, as far as like keeping everything up to date. Do you have any experience where you were pushing code daily, to a production system, and, did anything ever happen that you had downtime that did affect the customer?
Yeah, so I've been on, of course, I've had experience with where we were pushing, multiple times a day, and the customers aren't having any interruptions. And then I've inherited systems where, regardless of how regardless of how many best practices we knew of, there was just policies in the way of us being able to do certain things, and then so. Certain people, and that's why it's all like you're always looking to improve. So you might not be able to. No one has this perfect DevOps philosophy model where everyone's 100%. There's always something that you can improve upon, and so that's where something called postmortems comes into play. So postmortems are really big with the DevOps philosophy, and I like to call them blameless postmortems, and that's when you've had a main event and you want to be able to learn from that event, you just don't let that event happen and not learn from it and grow from it to where those metrics that we discussed earlier are improved upon. You have everyone in the room. Some companies, they don't have management in the room. And then if the management are disciplined enough to be able to be in the room, but the biggest thing is that there's no blame. We're not pointing the fingers at a particular person. They shouldn't feel as though their job is in jeopardy. It should be a blameless postmortem. And in that process, really, you want to go in and you want to see what could you have done better? Where could you have improved upon? Where did things go wrong? Not from a person standpoint, but from an execution standpoint and from a team communication standpoint. And then you make sure you document those and archive them to where they're easily accessible. So if somebody new comes on this team, they can read all this breadth of information and see where between development and operations things might have fell through, or there might have been practices that were dropped, and then you find ways on solving those. So next time you go to another situation, you have a postmortem from that a similar event that you can learn from that. So the postmortems are really, really great to process for organizations to do, but it definitely takes a lot of maturity. You want to have that trust with your teammates where it's not a blame game. It's how can we improve? How can we get better? And how can we learn from this? Because no one wants, and we've all been on teams where they might have been the same problems keep arising. And we put out the fire, so the person's getting called in at 2 a.m. and it just keeps happening. No one wants to do that. It's going to have high burnout rate from your team. You're going to have high turnover, and that's like you don't want that. So postmortems are activities and ways to be able to help improve based off of those events.
So I got a funny story. So I heard you say something that I thought was like really like interesting, and it sounded like a dream because I guess from my experience, I have like experienced it a little bit, but not at the same time. So blaming other devs. So I was on a few projects where the blame game was heavy, and one thing that I love about Git is that you could go on there and you can select blame. And you can see who did the push that fit, broke everything. And so just funny story is that I worked with a group of guys. We had one guy who was just like always pushing bad code, but always the first person to point the finger and say it was somebody else. You touched this, you did that. And it was so heartwarming. Yeah. It was
how many people are reviewing that, and how many automated tests do you have within that process as well? So with this model, it's not just him. He can be a portion of it, but there's no point. We're not pointing who reviewed his code. There should be, depending on team size, as long as it's not 2 people, there should be 2 reviews on average team size going before that even gets pushed to staging. So, and then not even from staging to test to prod, or I mean, everyone has slightly different levels of resources there. But what was that process like? So there
I think.
is. Oh, go ahead, Clarence.
Oh, I was gonna say I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just wanted to say
because I kind of said, aha.
I just wanted to point out, like, the number of resources is super important, and I think too. So when I think about the whole DevOps cycle, I've seen at a lot of companies that it's like you have certain people doing a lot of stuff, and one thing that I've seen a lot of in my own experiences that like. And one thing that was taught, but I don't feel like I've seen a lot of it, is kind of like code reviews. I've seen some positions where we did have heavy code reviews, but then I've also seen where, the company didn't value them as much as the teams did. So certain teams held it, but, it depended on who your product owner was and your scrum master and all that stuff was, like, they might be like, oh, if it works,
don't need that.
ship it. Yeah.
Just toss it out there. It's fine. I have confidence in
you. And I mean, that could be another episode. We kind of talk about that, but to me, it's just like, I don't know. Like I said, I heard the word blame, and it's just like I've seen where it's easy to just say, like you said, aha, I know who did that. That kind of thing. So I guess that kind of brings in a good segment to our next question. So, why do devs have to do it all? Do you believe devs have to do it all, JB?
Not that they have to do it all, but I feel as though they should understand the different pieces, because there are times where they may be the only person that's there. They, if you, like in the situation where I think in the last episode we were talking about being on call. And so if you're the person that's on call, guess what? You got to be that person to fix the problem. And so you need to be able to know and understand all the different pieces of the system, whether it's the testing, the metrics, knowing how to read them and understand them and pinpoint where the problem may be when assessing those metrics. And just little different code breaks that may happen. You have to be able to know and understand all these different pieces. And so you don't have to do it all, but you need to be able to understand it all. Now that comes into the fact of, having a good team flow, where it's not just, the devs over here, the operators over here, and it's just complete separation. You really need those two to mesh, because that's how you really have a successful production process. Because if these two groups are like, well, I'm doing my part, I don't care what they do, something's going to break sometime soon, because somebody's going to do something, they're going to change something, and they're not going to communicate it with the other side. And then now you're there on Friday at like 8:00 at night, knowing you have an event to go to, and the system's broke. Customers are calling, and your boss is looking at you mad. And so if you know and understand all these different sides, then it helps with that.
With that event that you're going to happen to be a hackathon or a community, a dev community?
Oh yeah, definitely. That's how I spend my Fridays. I leave from work and go straight to some code meetup or some hackathon that I just randomly found, the Thursday before. Just like, what am I going to do on my Friday?
Yeah, binary.
I heard of a group that's they call themselves Beard JS. It was on a meetup thing, and I was like, that's pretty perfect, because you kind of mix the two together. And I mean, hey, that's a pretty cool Friday night. But go ahead, Terrence. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, you're good. But so, just building off of what JB said, if you, from this DevOps philosophy, there's no building your code and then throwing it over on a wall to ops, and when it fails, it's just there. It's just on them. A lot of these studies, sadly, I cannot quote where it originated from, but he basically said that they noticed that if they called the developers at 2 a.m. and they started to have to come in and fix the system that's broken because of their code was not running properly, those developers were a lot were considered and tested a lot more than they would have if they just were able to throw it over the wall at ops and just forget about it. So develop and like the word is out now. All these books and all the DevOps movement is out now. All the metrics and numbers are there to where developers they're just more considerate with what they're building if they have to be in and come in on call. And so a lot of these high performing teams, high velocity teams, their developers, they have to not only build it, write it, but they also have to be there for it to make sure it's running. And so when you're talking about the culture and mindset behind DevOps, that is one piece, that is one common characteristic there. You're not just throwing it over the wall. And some of these teams, they don't even have ops at all. It's just developers. Developers do the tests.
I coded it and it seemed to work, and then they just toss it out there. Right. You have that one user that does that one thing you didn't expect, and now the whole system's dead.
Right. Yeah. Because in reality, if we're automating it in the way that we're supposed to, your operations team, they should be small. They should not be there doing it a whole bunch. I personally, and I need to actually look more into the research of this, but I do feel as though the ops teams, if your ops team is extremely large and you have more ops folks than you do developers, then that means you invested in the wrong, or maybe it's some type of legacy system where they didn't have the developers there and they didn't start off with this DevOps model. Because in reality, we shouldn't have to have a whole bunch of system admins. They should. You would prefer to be able to have a bunch of devs if we're talking about an application system or some type of framework there. So not saying that there's not a need for it, but a lot of things, if we're automating things correctly and the system is providing the feedback to us, and that's one of the flows, we're flowing left to right, and then we're also looking for that feedback from this model. And so we should be getting the information that you have the Cabanas and all these other different frameworks to where you're getting so much rich data, graphs of what's the system doing, and you should be able to pinpoint. And that's another reason why when developers are writing these code, they know who to call, because hey, look, they built this ticket, we know that it's this, and it's not that perfect, but you should have a good idea with this model of who's doing what, and so the accountability is there. So
makes sense.
So one thing I wanted to add was, we keep talking about metrics. One really important thing about the metrics is that you want to make sure that the metrics that you're pulling are actually valuable to the system, because you can pull a metric and say that, oh yeah, everything's going great, but when it comes back to, implementing something else, it doesn't really tell you when it breaks because it's not giving you the right information, because you or someone else on the team has put in some type of bias when it comes to the metrics that you want. Now it's like skewed to the point where you're not getting any valuable information. And so you really want to make sure that metrics development process is done the right way and from, a few different point of views, so that you're getting that full scope picture, as opposed to just one person sitting over in a room. It's like, yeah, I think that's what they were talking about. That's what they wanted. And then you're not getting anything. So, yeah.
So I guess, would you say in short that what you mean is that kind of following the DevOps model, everything has to be adaptable to, the cycle itself, and kind of staying true to just always kind of not being like set in stone, but, adjusting when needed and kind of like picking up on when, things need to change and so forth?
Yeah, definitely. Because you need to know when one piece of the system is going stale, as in users aren't really using this, particular feature anymore because we added this feature. Well, maybe we don't need this feature anymore, or we just lessen the amount of work that we have our developers doing on that said feature and whatever goes into the background of that. And so, yeah, making sure you disperse your developers in the right way.
Makes sense.
So, yeah.
All right. So I guess we'll go ahead and that was a lot of good content. So I guess we can move on. So my next question is DevSecOps. Is DevSecOps DevOps? Did I say that correctly?
So DevOps has security embedded into it in every single step. So that's another buzzword. DevOps is a buzzword as well, but DevSecOps is really just like overdoing it. So DevOps should include security in it. So when you hear someone say DevSecOps, is repetitive. It's like DevOps has security built into it. Each step everyone has a responsibility for security. Not saying that there's not specialists for security, but everyone, the developers, are held accountable for the vulnerabilities that they build into the
Make
systems.
sure no buffer overflows.
Right. So like we're like, and the thing is, and it's always going back to the developer because it really starts with us. There might be, of course, it starts with a need or a customer, but as far as building and implementing, we're like developers are the core in this. So whenever you're doing your boot camps or your training and you're like, man, I really mastered this JavaScript. I really mastered this Python. Oh, I'm awesome at Ruby on Rails, Node, all this good stuff. Great. But you also need to know how to run those. And DevOps, like we've stated, it's a mindset. It's a cultural approach. It's a spirit, like it's a spirit that you'll feel in the office. Like you can tell when you're in a DevOps office versus those that are not. So learn how to implement with in those coding languages, but also we have to also know how to learn it. So a lot of the education platforms, traditional, they teach you how to they might not even teach you how to write the code, but they teach you the theories behind it. But you also need to know how to write it, and you also really need to know all the tools to be able to and methods it takes to make it highly functional. And so you don't want just pushing once a day is not impressive for a lot of folks. You should be able to, as soon as you have, and this is another aspect of security, as soon as you see a vulnerability, you should be able to push, and the customers shouldn't be feeling any lag or they should always have access to their service. So a portion of that, there is a cost to that, regardless of how good you are. So you do have to have the hardware and stuff to make that, to be able to have that with the A/B zones and all that other fun stuff. But so like there is a resource cost to that. But if your company is asking for that, you should be able to like map that out and say, yes, this is what we need to be able to do that. We can make that happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
So DevSecOps, DevOps is implied. It's there.
I got you.
Yeah. I mean, all throughout college, we've all had it drilled into us that any development process that you start should have security in it from the beginning. And so that's essentially what DevSecOps is making sure that security is embedded from start to finish. Because the fact that you never want to be that group that's like, oh, we found this, this thing that we forgot to do, and now your ops side is really trying to go in and figure out all the different places that the devs have to go back and fix, because now you just have tickets on top of the tickets that you already had. And that can essentially mean you become swamped with tickets, and it's just a never-ending cycle of you'll never come from under the major ticket influx. That's not to say that you'll get to a point where it's just zero tickets, because if you get to a point with zero tickets, somebody's not doing something right. But you want to make sure that the tickets that you're doing are worthwhile and something that the customer can really see, as opposed to just me doing a bunch of security patches in the background. So yeah.
Makes sense. So that actually is a segue into my next question. So I have a two-part question. Yes, I have a two-part question. And I think the second part might actually be its own episode of itself, but I definitely want us to talk about it because I think that it was brought up today. So benefits of DevOps. But part two of my question is, with the benefits of DevOps, does that also include or does that address technical debt when it comes to DevOps?
It should, for sure.
Yes.
For sure.
Definitely yes to your second question.
Okay.
I was so stuck on the second question. I need to hear the first one.
Well, the first question was the benefits of DevOps.
So constant improvement. So it's never ending. Like we talked about the infinity loop, like the infinite loop. It's never ending, and you're constantly improving, and it's high performance.
Yeah,
I like that.
Integration amongst the team sets.
Breaking walls down.
Exactly. We now toss things over the wall because me and the operator sitting right here side by side. You know,
I wasn't gonna mention any walls today. No walls today.
Oh, thank goodness. We appreciate you.
So the constant feedback, the 3 ways, always pushing downstream, and then ops, when they get that stuff, the feedback loop is there to where they're having that communication back and forth. And then the 3rd way is just an open environment for learning. So that's one of the biggest things. One of my favorite authors around the DevOps methodology mindset is Gene Kim. So, and 3 of his books, and he wrote it with others as well: the DevOps Handbook, the Phoenix Project, and then the latest one is the Unicorn Project. So those 3 books are awesome. They're also awesome in Audible format as well, if you're tight on time as well. But they have great real life scenarios in there and you'll hear the postmortems and the communication between devs and ops and all of that great stuff in those books with real life problems. Like literally, one of the first ones is like with the payment systems down. Like people need to get paid, and that system's down, or having issues. So like they're real. So like I would definitely encourage, because those are don't just live off of your stories alone. Live off the stories of others, even if they're real or fake. These really have happened. So those are great stories to be able to lean on. So when you're on these critical systems, and it is a jump. Like when you're a developer, you're just, let me just compile my stuff and run it. Like when this stuff is in the cloud and this stuff is running, customers are on there, they're still on there, you're on there, and the customers are on there at the same time. Like this stuff gets real. And when money is on the line for these businesses, or if you're with hospitals, if lives are on the line, don't minimize what we do and what we build as developers. This stuff is important. So when you're struggling with those algorithms, like learning these algorithms or just data structures, all this stuff is for important stuff. Sometimes we just think like, oh, we just want to get a job. Oh, we just want to get a job. No, this is like you're building. This is an art. Okay, this is serious, important stuff. So this is so building off of these books can also give you a lot of benefits. Yeah. So those 3 books, we can link those down.
Do you have a digital copy, or is it on that bookshelf behind you?
I definitely have digital copies. I'm trying to save space.
That bookshelf looks so lucrative. I didn't know if you had it. If you just pull back.
So if I pull this book right here, I pull this book, the whole bookshelf opens up to a whole nother layer.
Would that be your YouTube studio back there?
Yeah, it's a whole studio back there.
It's the editing studio.
I love it.
So one thing I was going to say is, Terrence mentioned like knowledge sharing. One benefit of that is the fact that I've met quite a few operators who don't really have that formal experience of being a developer. And they're always like, I just want to see how it is. I want to, learn a little bit. And so I've had times where an operator's like, hey, can you just like give me a small piece of a project and, kind of like just so I can see how it is. And they get the experience from programming, and some of them are like, oh, this is so cool. Like, I want to do this, for a while. And there are others that's like, all right, I had the experience, but it was nice, but I'm going to go back over here to the operator side of things, and I'm just going to leave it. And so you get that kind of experience of, not only being like a developer or an operator, but you're also teaching people. So I learn from my sysadmins all the time, and they learn from me. And so, yeah, we definitely have a nice little trade-off between each other as far as like, I'll be like, hey, I'm trying to do something. They're like, yeah, you just do this real quick and that's it. Or vice versa. It's like, even if it's not like something for the job, they may be doing some type of home project. And it's like, so, I know you're working in this space and I'm trying to do such and such. And it's like, oh yeah, you just do that, and that should be it. And so it's definitely good for the knowledge sharing piece.
Tonight I will admit the flow is just amazing. I'm loving it. We're going segue after segue, and
act like you've been here before.
What do you know? What do you know? What do you know? We have another segue. You brought up a good point. Becoming a value asset while in
Clarence,
DevOps.
You gonna segue so much. You gonna segue right up off the
I know. Y'all are just flowing. I love it. I love it. I'm not. I'm just gonna step back. I just want y'all.
Aren't you happy I wasn't point guard tonight? Aren't you happy I wasn't point guard tonight?
All right,
I got so many
yeah, we're
assists
just
tonight.
dishing passes.
Me and JB, the best shooting guards out here.
We just
Shooting
out here
guard
just.
power.
I'm just setting up to play on the floor.
I don't know.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we just
Come on,
mixed a
point
lot of
guard.
sports together. But okay, but that brought up again. So to bring us back, becoming a valued asset. What's your thoughts? I think you touched a lot on it, JB. But is there anything that you like to add, Terrence? Is there anything you just you want to take us away with? I had a point, but I'll wait.
Business. The business folks in your organization love metrics, and if you can prove to them provide them the numbers and the cost savings and the agility, show them that in numbers and equate those numbers to dollars,
Your goal is
speechless. Like it's like you
That a mic drop?
You're proving
Yeah.
your
Pretty
worth.
much.
So if you as a developer can automate what 3 or 4 other folks were doing.
Mm-hmm.
Business standpoint, I mean,
It's no brainer.
So when folks are saying, "Oh, they just write code," that's a luxury. That's a real luxury.
Right.
I never want to be the person that just writes code. I want to write the code and I want to run it effectively as well.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense. Anything that you like to add, JB? You good?
Well, I don't know if you guys heard me at first, but I was saying the continuous learning process. So
Yes.
continuing to learn and grow and develop your skills really helps in making you a valued asset. Because if I see that you're, really trying to better yourself in the space that we're in, as far as what type of software we're working on and learning and staying up on all the new features that you can add and things like that, then I know that you care. And so it's like, all right, I have somebody who wants to be here, because if you don't want to be there, your productivity level is not going to be where I want it to be. And so if I have somebody who wants to be here and that's eager about learning and sharing their knowledge, that's a good piece for me.
Makes sense. So I'll go ahead and add my thought to it, and I'm gonna make a outdoors or out in the woods reference. But when I think about becoming
football, basketball, to the woods,
fishing,
to the woods, fishing, hunting.
Let's paint this picture. Is camouflage on and all that good stuff?
Camouflage is on, but becoming a valued asset. When I think of that, and I think about just a dev in general, I think of the multi-tool, the Swiss Army knife. Like that's how you become a valued asset. And in that is that, you're offering so many different things in so many different scenarios. And you all touched on it a lot tonight that, continuous learning, being able to run your code, and also, not only development. Sorry, let me take it back. But not only to being a developer, but running, understanding the system, understanding all of the processes. Like you have to wear multiple hats. And sometimes is being a dev, and so most people will look to you to be the project manager at times. Just anything that the team needs like that relies on you, because most of the time you'll have other folks that don't write code, and that's going to be the first thing that they single out. They're like, oh, I don't know code. I don't touch code. But the beauty of being a developer is that you see everything from a technical side. You see everything from a broader scope. So you get a chance to wear those multiple hats and kind of see things go from start to finish in all of the roles. So that to me is how you become a valued asset, and just being as flexible, adaptable. Again, the Swiss Army knife. Anything that you could think of that you could use, like you pull it out, I was like, oh, I have that, and that's you. So a lot of good stuff covered. I'm blown away. Is there any final thoughts? Anybody, anything want to add?
Nope.
The tools are interchangeable.
Okay.
The mindset is the key.
Okay.
Check those books out.
Okay. I'll leave it at that. So, guys, Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Devs Like Us. Guys, again, don't forget to like, subscribe, and
ring that bell.
bell.
I think that's our thing. That's our thing.
I love
That's
it. I love it. I love it.
Woo,
Don't
that's
end. And also, if you love the content that was shared today, or any of the content that's shared in our episodes, feel free to share it with others. We drop some valuable gems, and also if you have some gems to add, drop them in our comments. Drop them in our comments.
Hey, Clarence, you got cowbells? That would be lovely if we could all just pull out some cowbells.
I don't have any cowbells. I did look at one of the little
The triangles.
Yeah. At my favorite store, they had one on sale. I was so tempted to get it.
I got to get us some bells.
But again, guys, thank you so much. We appreciate your support, and thank you for listening. So on that note, I'm Clarence.
JB.
I'm Terrence.
Be good, y'all. Talk to you next time.